Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. It is a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. I'd like to extend my gratitude in you listening to this podcast. It means everything to me, and I hope it is clear that this subject matter is so important to me. I care about our people, our future, and making a positive change in this nation. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. Today I am bringing in Afiel Levi from the Forefront Radio to discuss another important topic. And so, welcome to the show, Levi.
Hi, I'm Matthew Levi with the Forefront Radio. Thanks for having me on as always to talk about important subjects that impact our community.
Definitely appreciate you being here, sir. And so, we're approaching the 3 weeks since a young woman by the name of Felicia Johnson has since she has went missing. This story went on my radar a week ago, and I've been paying attention to it to see if there would be some significant movement or and possibly some additional coverage from the mainstream media. And I haven't seen a whole lot here, so we wanted to bring this to your attention and hopefully add to the efforts that are being made in this matter as time is of the essence as we are approaching 3 weeks since Felicia Johnson went missing. So I'm going to kind of give you the nuts and bolts of where we are with the matter, and then we will share some additional information. Let's see. Felicia Johnson is from California. She took a trip to Houston, Texas to celebrate her birthday. And it is reported that she went to apply to work at a nightclub called the Cover Girls Nightclub. And that is the last time she was seen. And I believe that was April 15th. And she is 24 years old. She's a Black woman. And not a whole lot of coverage, mostly local media that I have seen. And we've had some independent news sources. Shout out to Roland Martin's network who has covered it. And I wanted to just put the word out if anyone knows anything that we can share in this. On the show, FEL and I have talked about the lack of coverage that people of color receive when things like this happen, and the theory referred to as missing white woman syndrome. And it just really feels like, that's what we're seeing here. And for those who are not familiar, missing white woman syndrome, this term was coined by the late journalist Gwen Eiffel, is the fascination of cases where the missing person is a white person, and then there is a lack of coverage when it is people of color. And so I want to bring Levi into the conversation here.
And that's an interesting point of what you mentioned, and it's poignant to this discussion because when you look at our nation as a group of people, hundreds of thousands of Black women and children go missing every year, and you get little blips here and there on the news media. But when you, like mentioned, the missing white girl syndrome that people have, these things get vast amounts of coverage, almost international coverage. An example of this would be Gabby Petito, I believe, in her murder case, how she ended up, having all this coverage from CNN, from FBI.gov, from ABC News, and all these different things. But when you look at this story of all women, they'll pop up locally, maybe on a county news or maybe on the local news, which is why it's important to have national and international syndication of these topics to go into protecting our sisters. Part of protecting it is standing up as men and really addressing these issues that impact us. And my heart goes out to the father that is taking the steps and efforts to search for his daughter. Really wonderful man to do so. She's just a 24-year-old young lady. perfect opportunity for her to build and grow, to have a family, to build our nation.
Yes. And as far as the updates, looks like one of the more significant updates is that they did find her cell phone in the Bear Creek Park. There's a notation that there was a bloodied phone found. However, we don't have confirmation that the blood belonged to the missing person, Felicia Johnson.
Definitely. And her father's name is Kevin Johnson. If any of the listeners want to reach out to him and assist him in the search efforts, provide him with any financial support that you can have to give to him to help with this, whether it's contacting lawyers or private investigators or anything of that sort, feel free to help him. His name is Kevin Johnson, and you can reach out to him. He does live in San Diego, California, but I believe he's still in Houston currently searching for his daughter.
Yes, definitely want to add to that. I also will share the phone number for the Houston police so that if people happen to recall seeing something during the time frame, we're approximately right at the 3 week mark of when she went missing. So we'll share that in a bit here also.
Definitely. What I found significant about this situation is there's stories in the Bible that talk about how we as men, as family oriented individuals, can have a better care for our daughters, our children, our women. And if we follow these guidelines, it will prevent a lot of situations that can happen with missing women and missing children in our communities. In the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 7 and verse 24, it states this: Has thou daughters? This is referring to our men. Hast thou daughters, meaning, do you have daughters? Right? Have a care of their bodies, and show not thyself cheerful towards them. Marry thy daughter, and so shalt thou have performed a weighty matter, but give her to a man of understanding. So it's not a light thing for us to allow our daughters that we raise to be out into the world without that protection of a father. A father's role is to have care over their daughter's body. So that way they won't get pregnant, they won't end up in a situation dealing with negative things that can impact their life, such as kidnappings and all of that. And what I want to mention is the fact that a lot of these nightclubs target and exploit young women
Hmm.
as models, quote unquote models, as workers, as waitresses. But in a lot of these things, especially in our community, it's a thing that we normally don't discuss, but those workers are doing a lot more than just dancing and serving drinks. And this is something that we must address because now you have stories now where the last place she was seen was an adult nightclub. That's the last place they found her,
Hmm.
you know? They didn't find her in college. They didn't find her at a doctor's office. They didn't find her doing something that could be, beneficial to our society. They found her at a nightclub, and unfortunately now she's missing. And that's really something that we have to address.
Yes, and the nightclub has denied, any um, involvement with her disappearance. That is reportedly the last place she had been seen. And missing date is April 15th. Again, she's 24 years old. She is 5'4", 150 pounds. Her hair color is black. The length of her hair color is long. She has brown eyes. You can do a search on the internet or Twitter and find an image of her, and we'll include the link and the phone number for the Houston Police that I mentioned. The Houston Police Missing Persons Division is 832 394 1840. It's really crucial if there's any information that could be shared to add to the efforts of getting information for this family so that she can be found would be great.
Most definitely. Um, And NPR did a story about this last year, which I think is relative to this particular topic. How they mentioned tens of thousands of black women vanish without a trace
Hmm.
every year. Okay, there's a website called Our Black Girls. This was created in 2018. Our Black Girls is a website that centers many stories of missing black girls and missing black women. And I think that's important and vital to have because now we have to be the ones to promote this because, like we mentioned earlier, it's not being broadcast on the CNN. So let's
Hmm.
create flyers, let's create networking, grassroots effort to help find our women. According to this article, it states this: tens of thousands of black girls and women go missing every year. Last year, that figure was nearly 100,000. That's not a light number, folks. That's not
Hmm.
something that is small and insignificant. That's a whole entire town,
Right.
a whole entire town full of women missing, gone. Yet these cases hardly even grab national attention. National headlines, like we mentioned earlier, it's only on local news. It might touch statewide news, it might touch a CNN, but usually it's only in local areas. So, a journalist in California is doing what she can to try to change that by telling as many of their stories as she can. And this is important because hopefully helping these families to get the justice that they deserve. This goes back to our Bible verse that we just read. I'm going to read that verse again. It says this: Hast thou daughters, have a care of their body, and show not thyself cheerful towards them. Marry thy daughter, and so shalt thou have performed a weighty matter. But give her to a man of understanding. So it's important for us as fathers, because this is a young lady. She's only 24 years old, just fresh out of college, you know. And my heart goes out to her father and her family because it's heartbreaking to have such aspirations for your children and to see them in a position where they could be potentially sexually abused
Hmm.
or mis misused by the quote unquote entertainment industry for
Hmm.
them trying to grab these young ladies and bring them into a life of promiscuity. And I wanted to tell you a story. Do you remember the story I was mentioning earlier where we were offline? I'll mention it now.
Yeah.
Um, of Leah, the a daughter of Leah, of our ancestor, by the name of Dinah. Okay, so Jacob, one of our patriarchs, had a daughter named Dinah, and Dinah was a very curious young lady. Okay. In the story, when you go to Genesis chapter 34, you read about how there was a man by the name of Shechem who was a Hivite, the son of Hamor, that was a prince over the land. And this man took her, laid down with her, and defiled her. So we have a law that we didn't intermingle with the Hivite tribes. We always kept ourselves separate and chose not to intermingle with them because they were involved with a lot of paganism and they were thieves and crooks. What they would do is try to intermarry within families in order to gain access to our riches, our resources, our women, our cattle, and all these different things. Such is the same example that we could use here in America. How the within this country, a lot of our black women and black girls are used and abused by society, whether they're trying to promote her being a quote unquote model or a
Hmm.
stripper or anything of that nature. Now, there's no judgment placed on this individual, but we have to show a cause and effect situation because there is a level of high promiscuity being promoted in Black communities, whether it's your music videos, whether it's the strip clubs, whether it's the Hooters and all these other places that people go. People don't think in the back of their mind that more opportunities for people that are of a deviant nature can arise where they end up kidnapping these women, abusing them, and all that, which is the case with this young lady. We don't know what happened to her,
Mhm.
but to find a bloody phone, that's indicative of something that could have occurred that could be potentially life threatening. Hopefully, that's not the case. Hopefully,
Mhm.
she comes back safe and sound. But referring to the
Right.
story of Dinah, so this guy Shechem, right, slickster, he tries to go after the fact that he had sex with our daughter to go to our father Jacob and say, you know what, I want to marry your daughter. Let's set up a covenant with each other. You can marry our daughters. We can intermingle with each other. But this was all a ploy because they had in their minds, the Hivites, to try to take over our land, take over our cattle, our resources, and our women, and leave us for dead. That was their original ploy.
Mhm.
But this guy Shechem, he was a lot more honorable than his relatives, where he actually was sincere in trying to marry our daughter. But here's the thing: our brother Simeon and Levi told him, okay, you want to marry our daughter? Here's what we're going to do. You're going to circumcise yourselves, you and all your people, because we have a covenant law that we don't intermarry with no one that's not circumcised. So Shechem went to his father Hamor, and he was like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So they went and circumcised all the men in the land. So Simeon and Levi, they crept into the city about 2 to 3 days later, and they took out their swords and they started slaughtering all of them, right? The whole city was wiped out. Why? Because they knew by the Spirit, God revealed to them that these Hivites had ulterior motives, that they
Mhm.
didn't want to marry our daughters out of sincerity, but they wanted to steal from us. They wanted to kill the men and take all the women away. So now use that as a shadow and type of how we were brought here to the Americas. Didn't America take our women and children and do abusive things to them? Yes, they did. Didn't
Right.
America now say, oh, forget about slavery, forget about all that. Now let's, kind of integrate and intermingle with each other. But they never stopped doing the same thing that they were doing in the past, which is
Mhm.
why you see stories and accounts of over 100,000 women and children missing. That's
Mhm.
not normal. That's not normal. So now we have to use our critical thinking skills to address these issues and help our people to wake up from the mental and spiritual apathy of what's happening to our people. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, and thank you for sharing that message. I also want to add that it's important for young women to take care of each other and look out for each other, especially if you're going out of town. We hear a lot of ladies promoting girls' trips and things like that. If someone's breaking off from the group, we need to be concerned about that situation, and someone needs to be in tune with the person breaking off from the group. There's definitely power in numbers, and one person versus more than one person is better chances. So the fact that she was alone, wandering into this club, it just really, I cringe at the thought that she was alone. Who was looking out for her? I mean, it sounds like people knew that she was headed there, but who was checking in with her? Hey, I'm here, I'm safe, or who was texting with her or checking in? We have to create a network and tribe for each other so that we can, you know, be in tune with each other if something negative were to happen. I that thought crosses my mind, so I definitely want to share that for anyone listening, that to tap in with your friends and make sure that they're okay, especially if they're heading out alone somewhere.
Yes, that is very important. And statistically speaking, I've heard of stories and accounts where when there's a male figure present or someone of authority, there's a lot less likely of dangerous situations happening. So
Mhm.
even with the girls' trips and the vacations, always have someone present with you that can you know uh, 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 de-escalate a situation, and always keep in contact with family and loved ones. According to the story, I believe she was catching a Uber ride and she wasn't able to get the Uber for some reason and ended up getting a ride from someone,
Mm,
and the story left off from there. So we don't know if it was a patron of the club. We don't know if it's somebody she met there or just some random individual trying to help her. We don't know. So
right.
it's important when you're in those type of situations, even if you're doing something as basic as going to the grocery store, travel in groups, work as a unit, work as a pact,
Hmm.
remove the independent mindset and work as a collective. Being independent doesn't always work. There's situations and circumstances where you have to operate as a group, especially when there's danger involved. They could snatch one person, but if you got 5 to 6 people pepper spraying and fighting and knuckling up and all of that, someone is gonna be able
Hmm.
to assess the situation and stop it. So safety is important. I want to make sure we stress that.
For sure, definitely. Anything else to add on this? We did share the number for the Houston Police Missing Persons Department, and there's information online. Also, we'll have that in the show notes. Also,
Yes, the last thing I would point out is follow the dictates of the scriptures. Don't make the same mistake that our daughter Dinah had in being too curious in matters that she didn't need to be involved with. And also, we as fathers must have a care for our daughters, our women, our children, protect them, be a source of strength and compassion for them, guide them in the right way, and teach them to be honorable women in today's society.
thank you for sharing that. And please let us know where people can find your podcast.
I'm the host of the Forefront Radio. You can find us on Instagram, The Forefront Express, or type anchor.fm/the forefront to go directly to the show and listen. We are available on Apple. We're available also on Spotify and other streaming platforms.
Great. And I thank you for sharing and joining on with us, Levi. And we thank you guys for listening. Another visual episode for you. Definitely plan to have more coming out for you guys. I appreciate you listening and tuning in. Thank you. At this time, we're going to go ahead and conclude the episode. We greatly appreciate you listening. We invite you to follow us on social media. On Instagram, it is Woke by Accident Podcast. On Twitter, it is Woke by. On Facebook, it is Woke by Accident Podcast. We also have the new website up, www.wokebyaccident.net. Please check us out and also follow us on all of your favorite streaming platforms, and please leave a review and share feedback. You can also reach out by Gmail, wokebyaccident@gmail.com. And every time you listen, we appreciate it so much. Thank you for listening and take care.